The morning air in the forest was thick with the scent of damp earth and the constant hum of activity. Rabbit moved through the thickets, clearing roots for harvest, while Monkey navigated the canopy, his movements fluid and precise. High above, the birds maintained a rhythmic melody that tied the woods together.
Then the rhythm broke. A heavy, rhythmic thud began to pulse through the ground, vibrating the very soil where the animals worked. Each impact sent a shockwave that silenced the birds and halted the work in the clearing.
Through the dense foliage, the trees parted. Elephant emerged, his path a straight, uncompromising line that forced Rabbit to scramble aside. He did not slow down. He did not acknowledge the path he crushed underfoot. Instead, he stopped in the center of the clearing, threw his trunk upward, and let out a roar that echoed off the valley walls. "I am the strongest creature here," he bellowed. The statement hung in the air, heavy and unchallenged. Rabbit remained crouched in the brush,
eyes fixed on the ground. Monkey stayed motionless in the branches above. No one looked up. No one answered. The silence that followed was not one of peace, but of deliberate, calculated fear.
Elephant turned away from the silent animals and continued his march. His weight pressed deep into the loam, turning the path into a series of jagged pits. Near the roots of a towering oak, he stopped. His shadow fell over a patch of exposed dirt where Little Ant was locked in a singular, exhausting struggle. She was trying to drag a single kernel of corn, a load twice her size, toward her tunnel entrance. She dug her legs into the soil, strained and pulled, an inch at a time. Elephant lowered his head, his eyes focusing on the speck of movement below. He let out a sharp, dismissive huff of air that sent dust swirling across the clearing. "You are tiny," he said, his voice booming down at her. "What could you possibly accomplish with that?" Little Ant did not pause. She held her grip on the kernel, braced her legs against a pebble, and looked up.
"Everyone has their own value," she replied. Her voice was steady, lacking any tremor of the fear that had gripped the others.
Elephant snorted again, a sound of pure disdain, and shifted his weight. He took a heavy step, crushing the earth inches from her, and marched away without looking back.
A week later, the sky turned a relentless, brassy white. The heat wave arrived like a physical weight, drying the streams and baking the forest floor into cracked, parched earth. Desperate for relief, Elephant moved toward the lowlands, seeking the cool moisture of the central swamp. He waded into the center,
expecting the refreshing embrace of water. Instead, the ground betrayed him. The surface looked solid, but underneath,
the silt was liquid and deep. His front legs punched through the crust, and he plunged forward. He tried to pull back, but the suction held him with a force that ignored his immense strength. With every panicked movement, he sank deeper into the gray, suffocating muck. "Help!" he trumpeted, the sound raw and desperate.
Monkey scrambled down from the canopy, grabbing a thick, sturdy vine, while Rabbit sprinted from the brush to assist. They braced their feet against the solid bank and pulled with everything they had.
The vine stretched, groaned, and finally snapped. Elephant did not move. He was buried to his knees, then his thighs. The mud climbed higher, thick and heavy. Monkey and Rabbit stood on the edge, panting, looking at the sinking giant with wide, helpless eyes. They were powerless against the weight of the earth.
Little Ant crawled to the precipice of the mire. She did not panic. She lowered her antennae to the mud, sensing the flow of water beneath the surface, then turned back to the forest floor. She tapped the ground in a rapid, rhythmic sequence. Within seconds, a black wave of movement surged from the nearby brush. Thousands of ants flowed over the edge, moving with singular purpose. They did not pull. They dug. They carved narrow, deep channels into the bank, creating a web of trenches designed to siphon the trapped water away from the suction point. The work was frantic but silent. As the water drained into the channels, the gray sludge lost its liquid grip, thickening into solid earth. Elephant felt the change. The ground beneath his heavy frame stopped yielding. It firmed up. He sensed the shift in pressure and pushed. He drove his weight upward, muscles straining against the hardening clay. His legs tore free from the grip of the swamp with a wet, sucking sound that echoed through the trees. He stumbled forward, gasping, and collapsed onto the firm grass of the bank. He breathed in long, shuddering gulps of air, his massive chest heaving. He looked down, his eyes widening as he saw the tiny, dark line of ants retreating back into the brush, leaving him standing on solid ground. Elephant remained still, his heavy breathing slowing to a rhythmic hum. He shifted his gaze downward until he locked eyes with Little Ant. She did not retreat. She stood firm on the grass, waiting.
Elephant lowered his massive head, the trunk brushing the earth until it rested inches from her position.
"You saved me," he said, his voice deep and resonant, stripped of its former arrogance. "I was wrong to judge you by your size. I am sorry." Little Ant did not boast. She only nodded, her antennae twitching in the cool air. "We all have our strengths," she replied. The lessons settled into the quiet space between them.
From that afternoon, the rhythm of the forest changed. Elephant no longer walked alone. He used his trunk to lift thick branches and move heavy piles of food for the colony. His massive movements now serving the smallest creatures. They moved through the trees together, a giant and his tiny partner.
The other animals watched them from the shade, silent witnesses to a new truth. The forest had learned that power was not found in the weight of a footfall or the volume of a roar, but in the capacity to lift others up when they were trapped. True strength was defined by the reach of one's help.